going to invite Ubut Bayanda. I don't know, maybe it's his network. But while we wait for him to take the microphone, I would like to introduce you guys to Dr. Amanda Kolisa and to Dr. Justice. They are our vets and our speakers for the day, together with Ubut Bayanda, who's a poultry farmer. And I would just like for them to give us a brief about themselves. I'm actually starting, guys. I don't know, maybe we should wait for more people, but I think while we wait, they can introduce themselves and tell us briefly about who they are. And yeah, I think beauty before age. So we'll start with Dr. Kolisa.
Good evening, everybody. I am so pleased to be in this space today. My name is Kolisa Amanda Nokoyo. I am a veterinary surgeon by profession. I hold a Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine and Surgery from University of Pretoria. I also have a postgraduate diploma in business management, and I majored in marketing from UCT. I am currently studying master's in epidemiology and biostatistics from Wits University. I have a poultry experience. I've worked in Rainbow, and I've also been a consultant in poultry. And I am right now more like focusing on academics. And my preferred field of work at the moment is zoonotic diseases, and those are the diseases that affect both humans and animals. I once again am so honored to be in your space, and I hope that this talk is going to be educational for you and more specifically for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes, actually, let me not speak. You can just go, Dr. Justice.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. As the host has stipulated, I'm Dr. Justice Masilela. Yes, I'm also a vet. Yes, studied at the University of Pretoria. And yeah, currently I work also as a consultant in production animal health. Also, I work with a lot of emerging farmers. I run, trainings on basic livestock care and primary animal health care. So yeah, it's also a pleasure to be. Yes, and I'm also a founder of Asante Veterinary Consultant, which I consult under. And yeah, so it's a pleasure to be also part of this. I hope to also learn a lot, and yeah, and also dish out some information where need be. So yes, I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Put Bayanda.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite. It's an honor to be here. Igama Bayanda Wagamasego. I'm a young farmer. I'm a poultry farmer in Balfour, in Mpumalanga. My farm also is very much closer to Nigel, which is in the East Rand. Basically, I manage and run a poultry layer farm, 6,000 capacity layers that we're currently having. I also do broilers. So it's quite a very great experience to have been part of the sector. I've been involved for 10 years now as a farmer and full-time on the farm. I'm also a student currently under a project program, the Africa Agricultural Agribusiness Qualification and many other courses that I'm doing in agriculture, as I'm trying to equip myself more and more, because I'm very much of a believer in equipping and empowering other people, especially young people within the agricultural industry who are um, aspiring farmers, and also people who don't know much about farming but really have to get information and to know about the farming and how it can really help us as a society in eradicating poverty and starting our own businesses. So I'm very much of an advocate of that. So I love farming a lot, and I'm very much involved in so many programs within the farming industry. But basically, for tonight, I am a poultry farmer. I run a 6,000 capacity layer house, and I'm very much excited to actually share some of my experiences that I've actually went through over the years with tonight's broadcast. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to also thank Bayanda for joining, even though he's on a vacation, but he took some time out so that he can just come and give us some of his wisdom. And I'd like to thank the two doctors for coming through. You know, it's usually not something that is done for free, but they are here for us, and we should just utilize them, you know, as much as we can, especially with all the experiences that some of us have gone through in terms of having our stocks fall sick. So I have a few questions, but I would like to start with Uput Bayanda to tell us one of the biggest outbreaks that he's ever had on his farm, like the sickness that his flock has experienced.
Yes, thank you very much. I will start with one that I experienced recently. We had a new flock that we put in of layers last year in June, and that was in winter. Um, though with all the experience that we had, but because of also the demand in the market, we had to put them in winter, which was not quite a very positive thing to do in terms of the readiness because of the winter. We do have a semi-automatic structure that we have built a few years ago that we are using, but it is not very much equipped or enough equipped ukunakekela or to take care of ama layers in winter. And after this outbreak, that's when we actually had to make sure that we do whatever it takes to make sure that we put all measures possible to make sure that we take care of our chickens. And that's one of the most important things that we need to discuss and to look at when it comes to outrage, diseases and all that. The best thing that we can do is to prepare ourselves before we even wait for diseases to appear or anything like that. We need to be prepared. So many times we face a lot of problems, we face a lot of outrages, we face a lot of diseases, and number one, we don't know what different diseases they are. We don't know the name of the disease, we don't know the cause, we don't know the solution in terms of what medication to use, is because we were not prepared. And we have done that for a couple of years in the 10 years experience that we had. And we kept on doing that because we want to produce eggs, we want to produce chickens. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. It can actually destroy your business totally. So being prepared is very much important. So we actually had, because it was winter, we had an infectious coryza. It's a respiratory disease that is very painful, especially for the chickens. And I think maybe after this space tonight, I will post maybe some of the pictures just to share with everyone so that they can see what it is and what it does and how painful it actually is, you know. It's something that we need to put out there and to make sure that we are always prepared for it. And there are many other reasons why you can have those kind of diseases. So it's a respiratory disease, and it's very painful because you have chickens that are no longer active. They have nasal discharge, they are sneezing, they have facial swelling, which is, I think, is the most painful part, where even their eyes are swelling and their eyes are watery, so they can't see anything. Their whole face is swollen. They can't eat because they can't see, and because of this disease, they don't have energy. So, if not treated early, they are going to die. And luckily last year we didn't have much chickens that had died because we were actually prepared, as I've said. We had already have had our medication for all kinds of diseases that we probably thought that might hit us, and we had all kinds of antibiotics that we had in place. And immediately we went into treating our chickens. The first thing that we had to do is to separate the ones that already seem to have this disease and to put them in what I call an ICU. So we have a hospital that I'll also share probably on my page as well, or on my profile as well, on how we're actually doing it. Always prepared, always there with its medication and everything for anything that happens, because we know that chickens are sensitive. So we had to put them in there. But it was very much labor intensive. Why? Because they don't see, so they can't drink the medication, they can't eat the food. So we had to take each chicken at a time and through a syringe give them the medication to drink each and every day. And that was a lot of stressful work to do. So I'm just sharing the latest one that we had, and it was very much stressful for us, and for our production, and for the chickens themselves. You would feel like you are really um, causing a lot of stress and abuse to the chickens, because you don't know if they're going to make it or not. But hopefully, because we were prepared with the medication and we actually were aware of some of the things that we might face, we were able to treat them. So I would really like us to have this conversation of being prepared and knowing what we are doing. I mean, you can't go into a poultry business not knowing what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and only looking at making money out of that. So it's a very, very painful disease. They can't breathe properly because their nostrils are full of things running out, and they are blocked, so they can't breathe properly, they can't eat, they can't see, they don't have energy, and it's just a mess and a very stressful experience to go through. A few years ago, about 4 years, we also had a huge um, breakout that really took us out. And I think that's one of the reasons we actually had to leave free range, Besenzama free range, and we had more than 5,000 free range that we had. And of course, we were not prepared again in terms of how you need to house them, how you need to prepare their nests. They would climb on top of each other, and they were overcrowded, and a lot of diseases were spread amongst them. And it was really, really, really bad, because there was a Newcastle disease that we had there, and it was all over, and we almost lost half of that stock. And that was a great lesson for us to make sure that, you know what, we are prepared before we start. We know how much space we can put, how many chickens, and what equipment to use, and what medication to have. So that whole experience really taught us a lot, and has helped us today to be able to know exactly what to do when such breakouts come out. I think for now, that's what I can share. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's very hectic, and I now feel like a child because I've experienced a bit of Newcastle, and it was so stressful, and my flock is not a lot. It was with broilers, and it was so stressful because I had to get all of them out in order to first clean before putting them back in and treating and all of that to try and save the situation. So you really sound like you have so much to teach us, and we're really, really grateful to have you here. Dr. Kolisa, I just wanted to find out from you in regards to everything that Ubud Bayanda has experienced. Has any broiler farmer or poultry farmer come to you first before any of these problems occur? Do they come and ask, okay, so what would I
Whether
experience?
it is a broiler or a laying house, there are basic things that everybody should do. Rule number one: you don't make noise. You walk in quietly. The reason why you need to walk in quietly is that you want to observe your birds. Where are they? Are they clapping together, or are they just spread evenly, or are they too far apart? Because the three conditions say three different things. If they are crowded, it means they are cold. If they are too far apart, it means they are too hot. If they are evenly spread, it means that you've got a good temperature in that house. The second thing that you obviously want to do if you're walking into your poultry house is that how do they respond when you walk in? Do they raise their heads up and maybe flap their wings or something? Again, that tells you something. Do they just sit or do nothing? That tells you something. If they flap their wings, it means that they are healthy, they are happy, they feel that there is a presence in the house. Okay. And then thirdly, for your 0 to 7 days old, I mean, now I'm talking broilers, I will come to the layers. From your 0 to 7 day old broilers, clap your hands a little bit and see what's going to happen. You should hear that chip chip sound of a happy bird. If you hear that sneeze sneeze, it means there's something wrong. So what I'm trying to say is that bulk of the things you will see or know just from observing before you even pick up your first bird, and then you look at their eyes, you look at the back. You're checking for diarrhea, you're checking for wet eyes, you're checking for tears, you're checking for swollen heads and stuff like that. All these things you are going to do as you walk in. Once you are done looking at the habitats or the nature of your birds, then you go through and you look at the drinking troughs and the feeding troughs. How are the drinking troughs looking? Is there litter in the drinking troughs? Are there birds just lying around the drinking troughs? Because that would say that maybe they don't have energy or stuff like that. So basically, you just need to know quite a lot of things before you even decide what you're going to do for that day. Moving forward, now you've seen the habitats, you've looked at the drinking troughs, you've looked at your temperatures and everything. The next thing to do is to walk around slowly, looking for sick birds and dirt birds. Because I mean, if you're doing again a broiler business, you are likely to see dirt birds and sick birds every day. Then you pick them up and you put them away. Again, I'm going to refer for today to the 0 to 7 day old. When you see a 0 to 7 day old sick bird in a broiler house, you can almost be sure that the problem can be traced back to the hatchery. Okay. Because it is almost impossible for that bird to develop a disease having been placed between 0 and 7 days. Then you pick them up. And we always suggest that just kill them, because the likelihood is that they are not going to survive up until day 35 or the catching day when you go for slaughter. So cut your cost. Those that are sick, that cannot stand up, they have those swollen bellies and they have that yellowish thing around their navel. You just cull them and put them aside and call your animal health technician or your vet to come and do the post-mortem and actually confirm that they are the diseases of 0 to 7 day olds. For now, I'm gonna stop there and maybe get Budbayanda and the other vet to speak, and then if there are any questions, because there are so many things to talk about, I'm just gonna come in later and then talk about what other conditions and diseases that you need to know or look at if you are working in the poultry business. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a follow up question. What are some of the disease management practices that you need to have in place, or prevention practices? Maybe uh, Asante Vets can maybe shed some more light on this.
Okay. Greetings again. Um, I think obviously there's. I can touch. I'll maybe touch two preventative measures that can be put in place so that a farmer at least try to prevent for disease to enter into either the farm or the poultry house, or diseases from causing sicknesses in and mass mortality in their farming enterprise. So one aspect would be the biosecurity aspect, that is very important for each farmer. So, what are we talking about when we talk about biosecurity? We're basically talking about safety measures put in place to control access into your house, and also measures to prevent either movement of diseases into the farm.
Busy answering. Just to catch you up. Dr. Justice, are you still okay to answer?
Yes. I can take it, or maybe start from the beginning and take it from there. Okay. So yes, I was on that, measures that we can put in place to either prevent diseases coming in or out, because also we don't want diseases coming in or out, and also measures that we can put in to ensure that our livestock or poultry or chickens have got immunity to be able to resist disease, or when they happen to encounter it, not to to prevent mass mortalities. So, which is the two being biosecurity and vaccination. Well, I started with biosecurity, making everyone aware that it is important to have what we call access control, where not everyone just walks into your farm, if it is a farm, in and out without any spray at the gate, on when it's a car, the tires, and or if it's a person, they wash their hands and maybe dip their boots or shoes, and yeah, I know some are doing it at the backyard. The least maybe you can do there is to make sure that not everyone has access to that side of your farming, whether going into the poultry house, or if you can have a fence to a certain, to just to control the distance of how close can people or other birds or other animals can get to their poultry house. It is very, very important. If you can build nets around your that would be even great, because some of the diseases come from ducks and some wild birds that when they gain access or they come close enough to your poultry house or to your chickens can transmit diseases. So I think access control, at least some food bath, and make sure that the chemicals that you are using there are the right chemicals. They are able to kill some diseases or some bacteria or viruses. Not just putting something there just so that you sleep well at night. Make sure that the stuff you put in there, I know of F10, some can use jig. To a certain extent, J's fluid work, but yeah, there are other, commercial chemicals that are made strictly for that. And yeah, they work well. So having that, and sometimes, if you can, when you're having different houses, just, if you can have certain people dedicated to one house and other to other house, that would work. But I know sometimes it's financially not viable for many farmers. So at least moving from one house, making sure that they bath their food, their boots or shoes going in and going out, and at least they wash their hands and that can go a long way, and going into the other house also doing the same can go in, that it can go a long way for a farmer. And yeah, just putting safety measures, control access, and foot bath, washing of hands, and washing off your clothes, not keeping your overall for the next day, and you using it over a week, and you go out and come back with it. All of those things. Just being aware that we are dealing with very sensitive species here, which is chickens. Now, coming into vaccination, it is important to understand that there are diseases that you don't want them to be at your farm. You just don't want them to be there, because one, it's almost impossible to treat for, or there's actually no treatment for them. For instance, almost all the viruses, in fact, all the viruses, I can safely say that you can't really treat viruses once they are in your some bacteria. They mention infectious coryza being one. You can treat some of them, but also some of them, once they get into your farm, they cause one, mass mortality, another, they are controlled diseases that when they get into your farm and it's being realized that they're in your farm, there is some quarantine that the government comes in with, and there's some culling sometimes, and yeah, if you're lucky you can get compensated, but if you're not lucky, there's no compensation. In fact, it shouldn't get there. We should put our it shouldn't be something that we could have done something to prevent. It should be always, when you're having such problems of diseases coming to your farm, be something that was beyond your ability to control. So yeah, there is vaccines for those diseases that you can prevent for, which are important, and then there's those ones that you can't prevent for, which makes them the biosecurity issue a very important. For instance, you can't, for avian influenza, you just can't vaccinate for avian influenza. So it then makes biosecurity very, 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 very important. Who goes in, who goes out, what comes close, what doesn't come. That's very, very, very important. So I think a farmer that has some biosecurity measure in place, and at least vaccinating for the important diseases we're speaking, maybe to mention few: Newcastle disease, Marek disease, Gamboro disease, those and other ones. I can safely say that those are important. And if you are having a layer house, it wouldn't hurt to you know run some tests from time to time, because those, they stay longer in your farmhouse, or in a poultry farm. They stay above a year. So maybe after some time you can take some blood and run some few tests for the important diseases that can potentially cause harm, or can be potentially present there and later on cause harm or production losses, and all of that. So I think that's where I will end for now. Just stressing out the issue of biosecurity and the importance of vaccinating to prevent, because in most cases, once the disease is there, you will have little or no chance to really deal with it. So trying by all means to prevent it from getting into your farm, or causing sickness into your poultry, or chickens, is of utmost importance. So yeah, just stressing that out. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Justin. Speaking of vaccination, I've been seeing that there's a couple of people that do the vaccination program differently. So I just wanted to find out from the doctors which way is the advisable one, because someone said you mix the vaccine in 10-liter water, someone said you mix the vaccine in 20-liter water and take out 1 liter. Which is the correct way exactly to do the vaccination for Gamboro and Lasota?
Thank you, Amanda. All right. What I would like to stress out first is that for people who have smaller flocks, vaccination becomes a bit difficult, because when you go get the vaccine, I think the smallest is 5,000 doses that is on sale. They never have less than that. But it is all when we work out vaccinations, we work them out based on the number of chickens in the house and the fact that then you are going to be mixing it with water. And again, it also depends on the vaccination that you are using at that particular point in time. For instance, if let's say you were going to use the one that is Gamboro Newcastle mix, if you were having 3,000 birds, okay, you would most probably be mixing that with I I'm looking at if it's a 3,000 birds house, you will be mixing that with about maybe 10 to 15 liters of water. Again, we use the number of birds in the house, and it's always important to read the package insert, because right now, you can't really say that you are going to use 10 liters or 20 liters. It's always on the package insert. Um, Secondly, all the vaccines, I would like to assume that you are now asking for again your broilers. All the vaccines that we use mostly in broilers, they come in the water. You need to actually like set wet them in the water. I also would like to stress the importance of the type of water that you use. um your water should be clean. It should not be hard. Hard water is the water that has a lot of minerals, maybe chlorine or all the minerals that you find in water that make them qualify as hard water, and also bacteria, like the most common bacteria in water being E. coli. So what you need to do, and something that is very important, you need to dechlorinate your water first before you add the vaccine. The most common product is that simple thing that we use to clean the pool. You just put it in your water, and then it will dechlorinate your water, and you wait a bit before you add your vaccine, and then you add your vaccine. I'm not quite sure what's the waiting period at the moment, but back then we used to wait for 6 hours when you have dechlorinated your water, and then you would then add your vaccine. This is very important, because if you would come to me, for instance, say, but doc, I vaccinated my chickens against Newcastle disease, but I see that the signs that they're exhibiting are those of Newcastle disease. The first question that I would ask is, one, did you dechlorinate the water, or did you remove the hardness from the water? And if you say no, likelihood is that your vaccine would have been denatured then by the hardiness in the water. So you need to remove the hardiness in the water. Wait for about 6 hours. And then secondly, if you are to vaccinate, your time of vaccination is also quite important. You need to make sure that you withdraw water from the chickens prior to the day of vaccination, so that when you give the water, they are thirsty enough to get the vaccine, and they drink quite a lot, so that you are sure that you've covered them. Okay, because if you do not do that and you give the vaccine when they are not thirsty, they might just look at the vaccine and then they will not drink. The third thing is that you also need to make sure that there is a time period when the water with the vaccination is released to the chicken before the actual water that they drink every day is released. You wanna limit the vaccination period to no more than 3 hours. Okay, so that you are sure that they've all been vaccinated, they were thirsty. So the process is that you make sure that the hardiness of the water is gone, you mix your vaccine, you make sure that the animals are tasty, and then you vaccinate them. I also would just like to add something quite important, and adding on what Asante Consulting have said in terms of state controlled diseases. There are diseases that are controlled by the state. That means that when there is an outbreak of that disease in a particular area, the state has to come and do the test, quarantine your flock, and tell you the necessary control measures to make sure that the disease doesn't spread beyond your farm or beyond that particular house, and such kind of things. So avian influenza is one such kind of a disease. And if you, as poultry farmers, you most probably would know that we've had quite a lot of outbreaks of avian influenza during last year and this year. The Western Cape we had, here in the Eastern Cape we had in Gauteng. So the state does take control of that in terms of testing, reporting to the international body, and making sure that we contain the disease as quickly as we can. The other state-controlled disease is obviously the Newcastle disease. Again, for similar reasons, that there are countries in the world that do not have that disease and they would not want to get it from us. So I want you to be aware of such kind of diseases which are state controlled. And again, in as far as prevention is concerned, again, adding on what the doctor said, please be aware that almost all the poultry diseases that are caused by bacteria, viruses, mycoplasmas are actually vaccinated. There is a good vaccination program for the broilers. There is a good vaccination program for the layers. And if you do that, you are likely to escape with very few diseases in your flock than you would if you were not vaccinated. Finally, when you are a poultry farmer, you need to be able to classify the group of diseases that you are likely to encounter. The first one are the diseases of the gut. Okay. And they normally manifest themselves as diarrhea. Okay. So you need to know the diseases of the gut. Okay. And then the second group of diseases that you are likely to encounter are the diseases of the upper respiratory tract. He mentioned infectious coryza. That's one of them. There's quite a lot. And then you are going to have the diseases of the nervous system and those that affect the legs. That's the third group. So whenever you walk into a poultry farm, you should always ring gut, respiratory nervous, gut, respiratory nervous. Those are the most common poultry diseases that you are going to get. And fortunately or unfortunately, there's clinical signs, sort of like cross-pollinate, if you wish, because even though Newcastle disease is a nervous disease, it still causes diarrhea. Okay. And then even though infectious coryza is a disease of the upper respiratory tract, the head swelling and the eyes are now sort of like a nervous sign. So, but they cross pollinate, but you should also always be aware. Gut, is it gut? Is it respiratory? Is it nervous? That also gives you that comfort of saying, okay, now, if it is gut, I know what to do. If it is nervous, I know what to do. If it is respiratory, I know what to do. And then there are conditions, metabolic conditions, which are caused mainly by the type of feed that you feed, at what age, are you overfeeding, is it correct or is it incorrect? So you are looking at that cocktail when you are a poultry farmer. Um, Finally, I think I did say finally, oh my goodness, but all that is important for you as a poultry farmer is that the Dr. Vincent talked about biosecurity and he spoke about vaccination. To answer your question earlier on, Tasmin, in as far as management is concerned, one of the things that you need to be important of is the triad of disease that we work with. If you are a farmer, know that for a disease to occur, you need an animal that is weak, you need an environment that is not hygienic, and you need the causal agent of the disease, the bacteria or the virus or the fungi, to be present. That is why earlier on I spoke about the diseases of the hatchery and the diseases of the farm. And then the environment, is it clean? Do you clean your feeding troughs? Do you clean your water troughs? Do you change the bedding? Such kind of things. Remove the wet litter, those kind of things. So your environment is important where you put your chicken. Um, how are your chicken themselves? Are they first grade chicken or chicken of poor quality? Where did you get them? Is it a good source? And then finally, is your farm clean enough or does it not have disease causing agents? Like he said earlier on, most of the poultry disease come from birds, rats, and birds. So you really need to make sure that you've got biosecurity. I'm just gonna stop there for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Just one more question before I give Norma the mic. Hi, Norma. Um, Bayanda, how accessible are vaccines like Marek's disease? Because I know that at Al Zoo they only have Lasota and Gamboro. Maybe their Lasota would be the combination vaccine. But other vaccines for long-term farming, like doing layers, you can't get them at feed stores like Auzu. They would tell you, no, go speak to a vet, because the vet is the one that would be able to get this type of medication for you. So for small farmers that are doing maybe a small number of layers, where do they get these vaccines that are needed, like Marek's disease and egg drop disease and all of that?
Yes, that's very true. It is a bit tricky, as you have said. Like you have made an example of Alzo. Either they will have a two-in-one combination, and they would have not the other, and you can find the other at a high performance, which is where I buy mine. But they probably would also have not the other. So it becomes a bit tricky, and hence it's important for you to look around your area even before you start, and if you have probably started, familiarize yourself with the different suppliers. And I've used the Asante veterinary consultations before for my farm, and I believe they also supply certain other vaccinations and other medications. So I think it's very important as well to familiarize yourself or to adopt a vegetarian who can always be there to support and assist you. Where can you find those vaccines and other medications for your poultry? Either they will have it, or they can be able to assist you on where you can find it. There are also national or provincial shops where I know there's a shop in Pretoria. I just forgot the name, but they supply almost everything medication. And I think you need to familiarize yourself also with that, not only with your corporacies, not only with your feed supply guys, Auzu, High Performance, AFCRI, and all that, but also other animal pharmacists that are actually there, that I think they can actually have almost everything. And that's also very much important in terms of preparation, to say, if something happens, where do I go? Who do I go to? So yes, you can find this and at Auzu, but you cannot find this at Auzu. You can find this at High Performance and not this at High Performance. So it's very much important for us to be able to connect with our doctors as well, so that they can be able to help us much easier. Then it's quite a stress relief, so that you can be able to access all those things. Some of them you can buy them online, they bring them to you. You can order them, and they can make sure that you get them, or they come and help you to vaccinate. So it's important for us to actually build relationship with our doctors, and I believe it's very much helpful and makes things very much easier. They deal with this each and every day, and they are able to advise you properly and to give you the right medication. I run a mentorship program, and I always tell people, if you are not prepared, you'll find yourself posting also on Facebook to say, my chicken is dying. Those big groups on Facebook, everyone is posting, my chicken is dying, this and this and that, and people would say, no, put sugar, no, put oil, put this, all this rubbish that we, especially as black people and black farmers, love to use, and they don't work. It's very much important for you to have a clean house. I know it's very fun, and that's what we are doing. We start businesses because we see other people are doing, and we start coming with our own preventatives and things that actually don't work for our chickens. And we stress our chickens, and they keep on dying, and it seems as if your business is not working out because you're actually doing things the wrong way. A simple vaccination program we don't follow. A lot of people don't have vaccination programs that they put on their wall, and they have it on their diary, and this is what they have. And I'm just stressing what the doctors have said as well, and to keep your place clean. I was shocked. I think I saw it on Facebook where someone was putting sand on their broilers. I don't know how good that works, but for me, you don't know where the sand is coming from, you don't know what it contains. And they said, I saw someone else posting that instead of sawdust, you can use sand. I mean, we're running away from dust, we're running away from diseases and bacteria, and you are coming, you're putting sand for your broilers, and they're staying in sand. So we need to make sure that we know what we are doing, we understand, and we respect the business, in order for you to be able to bring a good production system and to bring good products for your clients. A lot of us cry about e-market, and only to find out that from management of our business, growing our broilers, growing our layers, we don't know what to do. We don't follow our vaccinations, and we actually don't do things the right way. As doctor has said, sometimes it can be costly financially, but I believe that it can be there's many ways that you can use that can be cost effective, but also very much helpful for your business. So I think that's very much important. So in answering your question, as I've said, let's connect with our doctors, different kind of doctors, and let's find out more, where can we find all these vaccines. There's a shop you can go in and you can actually find everything, and might not be ours, it might not be high performance, but there are pharmacies that are dealing with animal medication that you can actually share these people and go and visit them and see what we can get from them. Thank you.
Norma, are you still there? Okay, it seems like Norma is
Can you
gone.
guys hear me?
Oh,
I'm here.
yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry guys. I apologize for my tardiness. I had an emergency that I had to rush out for. Good evening, everybody. I hope you guys are well, and I will definitely catch up on the spaces if anyone has recorded it, because I know, poultry diseases and treatments is literally such an important thing. Firstly, I'd like to actually share a story before I can ask the vets, as well as Dr. Kolisa, some questions. Well, just not a lot of questions, just about 2 questions, or rather practices that I have since adopted ever since my experience. So in January this year, so my capacity at the time was about 2,700 chickens, and from time to time you try and you get your cycles all lined up to be able to release birds weekly, without going too long-winded on the story. So long story short, we placed chickens. We had chickens that were 14 days old. We placed half a batch out of 2,700, and they were a day old. And literally 2 weeks later, when those other chickens were now 2 weeks post 14 days, we started experiencing massive losses. First, there was blood in their stool. They were coughing. You could literally hear them going, from the small ones, to the big ones, and the big ones were dropping in their numbers. I think I lost something like 1,200 birds in a space of a week. And at the time, I didn't even know anything about what diseases I was actually, what disease or infection or virus I could be dealing with. And I found out it was coccidiosis after I, got a vet onto the farm and did a postmortem. So post that, I started to look into what could have gone wrong. I looked at everything, biosecurity. We looked at, everything, the feed. I even contacted EPOL and I was like, could it be you guys? Because, I've got foot baths, we've got sanitizer. We make sure we literally clean the air. And long story short, there were a couple of people that came to the farm. I had experts, I had vets, you name it. Because I was a startup at the time, and I lost so much money, and I wanted to know where I went wrong. So I think my questions come in for Asante Veterinary Services, or you, Doc, if you can take it, right? So I found out that it was coccidiosis. We treated, the smaller birds healed. The older birds, we had to literally slaughter them and sell them for whatever we could make at the time. And someone actually came and told me, you vaccinate your birds. And I said, yes, I vaccinate my birds with Newcastle. And they said, but do they come vaccinated from the hatchery or where you buy your chicks? And I said, yes. And this gentleman actually said, and was like, when you actually vaccinate your birds, and I guess by Bayanda, you also spoke about vaccination programs, and I'm a very pedantic person that follows programs. So I always followed a vaccination program, or always followed biosecurity, protocols. But then this guy came and told me, look, when you start vaccinating your chickens, you introduce the virus onto your farm. So it means now you have to continuously vaccinate. Long story short, 9 months later, I actually, do a lot of like pre-medication, like force back tea, I give my chickens some aloe, a mixture between what I know works besides going as far as giving chickens sugar because I just use normal stress pack. But I've stopped vaccinating my chickens against, Gamboro or Newcastle. And I guess I wanted to ask you experts if that was a good move. I mean, it's worked perfectly fine for me so far. But I wanted to find out. But also another question, follow-up question I want to know is it good to actually preempt our birds, like having a vaccination program, with your force back teas and all of that? Because I've noticed that, with broilers, they somewhat all of them have respiratory problems. After like as soon as they turn over 14 days, you have to kind of come in with a bit of damage control here and there. No matter how pedantic you are with biosecurity, you're following everything. So I guess is to ask is vaccinating actually, what is this theory behind when you vaccinate, you introduce the virus onto your farm? And, is it good that we're pre-medicating the birds, in preparation of if something goes wrong?
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Do you wanna go first, Doctor, or should I?
No, I think you can, Doc. It's not a problem. Ladies first. I will come in if I have to.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, all right, thank you so much for your question, and I'm very sorry for what happened to you.
No,
So,
it's okay. I've got elephant skin, dog. I'm still here.
okay, all right. So, my approach when I used to work in the poultry business for coccidiosis in particular, um, I would request the hatcheries to vaccinate for me before I did placement on the broiler farms. If they did not vaccinate, it would be the first thing that I do when they come in as day olds. Okay. Um, Secondly, if you've had coccidiosis in your farm, the likelihood is that it's gonna come back. So you really need to be diligent in the vaccination. And remember, um, I like that you pedantic, but remember, if you're in a broiler business, you only have 35 days to pull it out as correctly as you can. So prevention again is better than cure. So as long as you've had coccidiosis, make sure that you control for coccidiosis. Coming to vaccination, again, broiler business, you have 35 days to do things correctly. Vaccinate. Do not play around with not vaccinating because you do not know when Gamboro will hit. You do not know when Newcastle will hit. I will strongly emphasize on Newcastle even more than Gamboro because I mean after 20 days it's something else. So you do not know when Newcastle will hit. So please, please vaccinate. Um Remember, we spoke about the host, the environment, and the disease. Now, when you speak about your first bacteria or any other antibiotic that you would normally have to come with after 14 days, what I would like you to do, make sure that you fall in love with the weather. You are a broiler farmer, fall in love with the weather. Know when it's going to rain, know when it's sunny, know because it's all about temperature control. All your respiratory diseases, even though they are caused by agents like bacteria, viruses, fungi, and everything, the trigger is usually your fan. Is it too cold? Is it too warm? Is it too, you really need to have your management in order. Again, remember, so they will sneeze, they will cough, because if the weather indicates that at 3 p.m. is going to start raining, you need to adjust your fans long before then. So you sort of like have to be proactive all the time. It's all in the management. Yes. Um, Please do not feel too ashamed to treat between 14 and 28 days. Bulk of your broiler treatment that you are going to do anyway should be between 14 and 28 days. If you have an antibiotic in your farm before 14 days and after 28 days, trust me, those chicks do not need antibiotic. It is purely a manage. If it's between 0 and 14 days, it's purely a management or a hatchery problem. If it's on the other side of 28 days, it is usually an environmental problem. Look at your heater, look at your weather. I will make an example. More often than not, when your broilers are growing, after 28 days, there are two things that are likely to happen rather. They might have a leg problem, or they might have ascites when they develop those huge bellies full of water and they just lie down and before you know it, they are dead. That is mainly a management problem. And for both conditions, there's practically no antibiotic that can help you. So all I'm trying to say is that always make sure that you fall in love with the weather and management. Those are your two best friends. And please don't stay away from vaccination. Vaccinate. Viruses and introduction of a disease into the body. Remember, the vaccines that we use, they are there to trigger immunity on the animal so that when the agent is available in the environment, it does not cause disease. It only triggers more immunity from the body so that the animal can actually fight for itself. So that is the basis of vaccination. In the broilers, mostly, we do not use a lot of live vaccines. We use attenuated, meaning that the biting factor of the vaccine or of the virus has been removed. We normally use live vaccines on the layers. Bayanda would know where, for instance, for the pox viruses, for your Marek's disease and stuff, we use those. But with the broilers, there is no need to be too much worried. Just vaccinate. And again, I understand that when you're doing a flock that is a bit small, the vaccines might come a bit pricey, but just please vaccinate. It's just always err on the side of caution. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Yes,
Thank you
Dr.
so much.
Justice, I wanted to ask if you had something that you wanted to add.
Oh, yes. Yes, I think that Dr. Kolisa has really touched on the most of the important aspect. Just to add on that, stressing what he just stressed, let us not shy away from vaccinating. Let us vaccinate. But at the same time, it is also useless to vaccinate when your management is not in place. For instance, she mentioned what we call water belly or ascites, which yes, you mentioned temperature and all that, but one also important aspect is ventilation, and accumulation of ammonia in our broiler houses. It is important to control the ventilation. Make sure that there is enough air circulation in your broiler house or poultry house. That is one of the important aspect, because yes, most of the time ascites is caused by not enough air circulation or ammonia accumulation in your poultry house due to maybe lack of cleanliness, or when you move a batch, there's not enough cleaning that takes place. So all of those management aspects are very important in your. Another thing that I would like to touch, that is also important in management, is your lighting system. For instance, there's a condition or a syndrome we call flip over, which is more or less a heart attack, where your broiler chicken will just that's later in, and when they around 5 weeks or so, going up. They can even start earlier depending on how good your lighting system is. Basically, what the light system does is it controls your intake. And yeah, so if there, for instance, there is no a light program and they stay for 24 hours with light, it means that they are eating 24 hours. And if they're eating 24 hours, their growth rate is high and uncontrollable. And you might find that there's a mismatch between the development of the heart and the development of the body. The heart can no longer, cater for this big body that is growing fast. So now you'll have a small stress or slight stress like that will result to that heart attack that takes place around that time. So now having a good lighting system in your broiler and your layers is very important. It comes in also as a preventative measure. If you, through just a lighting system, you can prevent ascites and prevent that flip over or that heart attack syndrome that I'm talking about. So that's those ventilation, temperature, all of those things that we have just mentioned now. They are very, very important. Imagine you're vaccinated for everything, you have your biosecurity, but you don't have a lighting system, or those small things, having other things in place, and then you just lack there, and you are hit, and you've got I've had a farmer that has lost significant numbers, due to flip overs or ascites. So those are things that pains me, because those are things that we can definitely control. With coming to Coxida, before I let go, there are feed additives that you can add to aid, what we call a prophylactic treatment. Those are ionophores that you can buy and add in your feed mixes and all of that. They do help. Um, I've got there was a mention of pharmaceutical companies. There's one already also as a listener, which is LHC Pharmaceutical. They are a pharmaceutical that supplies with supplements and some of the stuff you might need. Those are the guys you can go to. Also, they are there. I also work closely with them, so we do help quite a lot of farmers with any supplements, vaccines, and all that they may need, that farmers may need. So yeah, that's what I can add there. But yeah, it is coccidia is a hygiene disease. So let us also have our hygiene in place in our poultry avoid wet litters, reduce contamination levels, clean when necessary, just all of those things, controlling in and out. So yeah, those are the things I can stress out. And yeah, I'll end here for now.
Okay, thanks, Doc. There's an experience that I've had where my broilers suddenly had weak limbs. They couldn't stand up. It was so sudden. And when I paid attention to their poop, it was white and watery. There's a lady who's also doing layers. I asked for information, but she didn't give it to me. But she says her layers, they were already laying eggs. They were much older than my broilers, because my broilers were still young when they started having the weak limbs. The lady also said that her layers are suddenly not standing up. So I don't know whether the white poop was connected to the type of disease that those chickens might have had. So just based on the type of poop that the chickens pass, um, how do we know what kind of disease? So with regards to the white poop and the weak limb, is there a connection?
Okay. Yes, what I think Dr. Colisa mentioned Mycoplasma septicum, if I'm not mistaken, which is one of the bacteria that comes to mind, that causes a lot of joint swelling, joint pains, limping, and all of that. So it's one of the bacteria. I think there was also vaccination that you can, especially on the layers. There is vaccines that you can bring in place to avoid all of that. Dr. Collis, I don't know if you want to come onto that.
Yes, Doc. I would also just like to add that when you have a leg problem, remember what I said earlier on. When you walk your walk-ins in the morning, you should always scream, what am I looking for? Is it gut? Is it nervous? Is it respiratory? You all remember that, right? So when you're looking at the leg, it most probably would be sometimes nervous. But now you also have to fit in nutritional factors. If it is widespread throughout all the houses, it could very much be a nutritional factor. Like if maybe you have lack of vitamin D, or sometimes what you'd also see is that there's lack of vitamin D, or the balance between phosphorus and calcium in the feed is not correct. So what we normally do in that case, you take one or two of the already sick animals, then you do postmortem, you take the bones, and then they go for bone ash analysis. Okay. And you also take a batch of your feed that you got. Somebody said they source from Apple, but you take the batch of your feed that you got, and then you send it back to them or to your lab for analysis of the vitamin D, calcium, and phosphorus balance. Again, If now it would be on the side of the broilers, your diseases like your Newcastle disease will cause leg weaknesses as well. And then coccidiosis will cause weaknesses. And in a longer staying hern, like your layers, reoviruses, viral arthritis, and marex, they all are causes of the leg weaknesses. Again, finally, if the animal is weak, or the bird is weak, and it's having weak legs, pick it up and actually check where exactly are the weak legs. All right, because if the legs are weak because they are bent and then they cannot stretch out, it's something else. And also the age, if they are still young and the legs are bent, it most probably is a calcium deficiency, and that can be corrected in the feet immediately with calcium, and you'll see those legs strengthening. It's almost a miracle. And then the white poop that we're talking about, again, it's age related. In an adult chicken, a white poop that's got a soft consistency, and it is not smelly. I mean, poop is supposed to be smelly, but it is not smelly in as far as characterization of chicken poop is concerned. That is normal in an adult chick. In a younger chick, however, it would be white, it would be watery in consistency, and if it even be smelly, that is disease related, and it's most probably E. coli. But E. coli will not naturally cause weakness of the legs. The whole entire bed will be weak, and it will not be able to stand up. Now, if that bed is between 0 and 7 days, cull it. It is not going to recover. It is just going to spread the disease throughout your flock. You just need to cull it. But then if they are a bit older, between 14 and 28 days, that's where you can effect treatment. Okay, so the weakness could have been probably because the animal was having diarrhea, it was weak, it was lethargic, it was not eating. So it was a general weakness, not perhaps maybe the weakness of the legs themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Wow. I think I just have too many questions, so I am going to open the floor so that people ask more questions as well. I have a lot of questions I will not finish if I continue. So, guys, just indicate when you have questions, because I know probably some of you have experienced something that you would like to ask one of our speakers. And while we wait for that to happen, Brendan, you've been wanting to speak, my brother. How are you?
Good evening, farmers. I hope you guys are well. Yeah, I have a question. What's this for both the vets and Bayanda? So yeah. What's this? I'm Brendan from Elite Eggs. We are based in Limpopo. We deal with what's this? Sorry, we deal with layers. So we have about 2,500 layers at the moment, which are in production. So what's this? Through the cycle, every cycle we experience what's this? Prolapse. So essentially, what happens is that okay, so we follow the lighting program from the beginning all the way to the end. So, but we still experience prolapse. So what happens is that the chickens, they what's this? They bleed from behind. So we've been experiencing that for some time now. We don't know how to deal with it. So yeah, I don't know how you guys can help me out with that. That's my question.
Bayanda, would you like to take it? Bayanda, are you still there?
Yes. Yes, I am very much familiar to what he's talking about, and I think our doctors will also help us a lot if they have input in that. Um, for us, it happens it happened for different reasons, which I wouldn't say we are 100% sure of each and every chicken, but it doesn't happen really at the end. We've had a cycle of about 2,000 layers that we have had, and we had changed our feed. And the feed was quite very good, but it seemed as if the feed was having too much fat or something, but the feed was too much strong for the chickens. As the vets and the company were still testing what could be the cause, because our chickens were laying eggs, but a lot of chickens were starting to have that bleeding behind and actually dying. And in some instances, it would be because they had the chicken had failed to lay the egg, and the egg was too big. So it goes also back to what the doctor said about how we feed our chickens, that it can even make either the chicken to have too much fat from within, that it cannot be able to take out the egg, and it starts bleeding, and it dies because it cannot take out the egg. Then you have also problems like chickens poking each other at the back, and those are certain things that we also have to look at, and what are the causes and how can we deal with that and separate them. I'm not sure how severe is Brendan's case in terms of his experience, but we do have a couple of chickens that we have experienced having something like that. I don't know, Brendan, if it's the same thing that I'm describing, or what, but with us, it was an issue that we had to look at our feeding system, and also the feed, the brand that we are using. So I think the doctors will help a lot in coming in with in that one. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Bayan. I've actually pretty much covered what we would have said. Brandon, thank you for your question. One, you're looking at the weight. Okay. But the pick out or prolapse, as you put it, is common in overweight hens. They are more susceptible to the pick out or the prolapse because of the fat around their pelvis. Then there's a general muscle weakness, and then they suffer from the prolapses. Secondly, the feed is important. The level of calcium that you have in your feed, and in an unbalanced feed ration, is going to be a problem, because if you have insufficient calcium in the diet, it will give you eggshell problems, but it can also lead to a loss of muscle tone, and you will end up having the prolapse. The age of your animals at laying is also important. If they're starting a little bit too early and the size is a little bit too big, you are likely to have a similar problem. And then you already mentioned the highlight intensity. You always need to look at the lux of your light, and if maybe even look at changing the bulbs. But you said you've been doing that correctly. So obviously you need to look at the other reasons that we've mentioned. And also cannibalism. Bayanda mentioned cannibalism, where out of boredom, they just start picking each other's vaginas, and that also just causes prolapse. But I would suggest for now that you look at the age, because remember, when they come in at your placement at 23 weeks, 21 to 23 weeks, you normally feed them to a certain age, after which you just need to maintain throughout the laying process before you deplete them. So that's what you really need to look at, and make sure continuously in a laying hen cycle, you have to continuously, after each and every feed delivery, take a batch of that feed and do your calcium and phosphorus balance, and the calcium check to see the level of your calcium in the feed, because that will pretty much prevent your problems as soon as possible. And look at your exercises in relation to the weight of the animals that are at the laying age at that particular point in time. Thank you.
Sorry, can I come in again there? Sorry, Doc. Before you come in, maybe you can also also I just want to add something to that, and it can actually be some sort of a question, and it goes along with also broilers. and vaccination, and also layers in terms of their age and and so on and so forth. But what I'm actually looking at is, uh, can we have a discussion and also advise maybe from the doctors in terms of the 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 assurity of, are my broilers vaccinated? Because a lot of farmers, we actually not getting our broilers or sometimes even our layers from hatcheries, but we collect them from suppliers, which is our cooperatives and all that. And I think the only thing that we do is asking them, are they vaccinated? And of course, they will tell you that they are vaccinated, but are they really vaccinated? And can we have some sort of a validation or certificate, which I actually require when I buy my layers? Can I have a vaccination program of the layers, which has got all the information? So we should not only just be based, they told us that they are vaccinated, but do you have proof that they're vaccinated? Do you have any sort of proof or confirmation that the layers are at 18, 20, or 23 weeks, they are at point of lay? Because you get to have this problem, yet your chickens are probably too young, as Doc has said, or you are sitting with old chickens, or whatever the case may be. So as farmers, we need to be very vigilant and compromise when it comes to getting confirmation. If you're buying broilers from a hatchery, or find a way to get information, which hatchery is these chickens are, these chickens come from. Do you have any proof of vaccination? Because you can't buy stock, you can't buy things without a proper receipt and information about the product that you're buying. And I think that's where we also have these problems when we talk about management in vaccination and disease control. It all starts from the hatchery, like our doctors also said. It starts from the hatchery. Where are you buying from? Are they accredited? Do they have a vaccination certificate that they can give you, so that we don't come across diseases after we have applied all the best that we can in management and our layers and our broilers, and still face problems. And my question is, how convenient, Doc, can it be for us to get these vaccination certificates? I've had one of my suppliers that I fought with so much that I ended up cutting them because they could not provide me with a vaccination certificate. And I think it's fair enough for us to buy products with all the information about the product that we are buying and the chicks and the layers that we are buying. How convenient is it, and how easy it is for us to get that? What are the procedures, and do you know any way of how we can actually require this kind of certifications, which I believe is very much important? You cannot just buy 20 point of layers. You don't know where they're coming from. Are they vaccinated? Is this the real age? Because some of them, they mix them. And our poultry industry is very much compromised, especially for us black farmers. We are having a lot of farmers now that are complaining about them buying broilers, and at the end of the day, it's no longer broilers and all that. And I think it goes back to this us having this problem of diseases. Because of we buy things that we don't know where they're coming from, we don't have proof of anything like that. So, as you answer Brendan's question, Doc, can you please maybe highlight any of your experience or advice on how we can resolve this issue? Can we get vaccination certificates from each and every supplier, please, so that we, from their side, they have done their part and we do our part from our side? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ben. Well, it is your basically right to ask for the certificate, but I know that a lot of farmers don't really have a sorry, a vet that really does the vaccinations. So as of a result, they find themselves in a predicament whereby they cannot really have, because it's a vet that can issue a certificate, a health certificate. So now you find that they do their own vaccines, and when you are asking for the only thing they can provide is their vaccine schedule, of which obviously also it's a bit sketchy. Can you trust it? Did they just make one when you requested it, and all of those questions that you might have, which are valid. But yeah, so I think you end up relying on their word because they can't provide a health, and now they can't also now involve a vet, maybe me, to come in, because then now I was not there involved from the beginning. I did not. I'm not the one who made the vaccination schedule, and I did not. I was not in place to follow up on that. So yeah. But also on your side, maybe what you can do is to get a group, not all of them, just a small group, 10, 20 of the chickens, and you just take the blood, and you send in for what we call titers. They tell you of usually the immunity for those specific and important diseases that they should be vaccinated for. So you take a blood, especially for layers. Also, it's also an important tool for layer farmers, because sometimes immunity does wane. So for you to know that should I boost them for this or not, you can take that blood, send in for titers, and yeah, just check the strength of the immunity. Does it still have enough titers to be able to fight for that, or you need to boost them. So I think it then becomes your duty or your task to then, when you get them, or from you where you when you have questions, take the boosters, I mean the blood, send in for the titers, check the amount of immunity for those diseases that are important and that they claim that they're vaccinated for. And if there's a need for you to vaccinate or reject or boost them, then you do whatever you see fit or you see necessary. So yeah, that's what I can say. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Doc. Brendan, were you answered? Okay, thanks, Doc. Brendan, were you answered? Brendan, were you answered? Okay, Norma, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think we've lost Brendan. Okay, there's another question from Remy, and I'm approving him. I don't know what's going on. Hi, Remy. Remy, good evening. Did you have a question?
Yes, good evening. This is Remy.
He's still showing as a listener on my side.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, yes. This is Remy. I'm from Uganda. Thank you so much for this opportunity you've given us and the good insight that we have got from the doctors. So I would love to ask our doctors. Okay, the farmers or the doctors. The question is comment about the use of the different antibiotics by the poultry farmers. Is it good? Because once you get these antibiotics, sometimes you read and there is a withdrawal period. For example, for the layers, they tell you that this certain antibiotic has a withdrawal period of like 3 days. And so, if at all I'm using those antibiotics to treat my birds, what am I supposed to do to the eggs? Am I supposed to put them out to the market, or I'm supposed to leave them for a certain time? And in case I'm to use maybe the certain antibiotics, am I supposed to wait for some maybe a few days before I sell my broilers? That's question one. And then there is this question, I don't know whether you can help me answer it, about if at all someone wants to construct a poultry house, what is the orientation? Because I hear there is a orientation that once you follow those guidelines, you are able to prevent certain diseases that come with maybe the sunshine entering the poultry house and all those things. Otherwise, thank you so much for the opportunity and the good insight from the doctors. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. I will answer on the antibiotics. In fact, I'll try to answer all. Then, if I've left something out, Vincent, please come through. Okay. So, remember earlier on, I said that the biggest period to apply your antibiotics is between 14 and 28 days in your broiler chicken. And now that is because the likelihood is that you are likely to catch on day 35. Okay. But it goes back up to 14 and 25 days if you are likely to catch on day 30. Bulk of the antibiotics that are used in the broilers have a 5-day withdrawal period, maximum being 7 days, meaning that those chickens cannot be slaughtered um anytime before 5 or 7 days after they were given antibiotic. In this form, we are trying to reduce the levels of antibiotic residues that we are going to find in the poultry meat that is going to be consumed by people, because the domino effect would be that when people consume that meat that has antibiotics in it, they are going to form resistance when they're given the similar antibiotics for other treatments or for for other diseases that affect humans, because basically the antibiotics are the same. So the withdrawal period is 5 to 7 days in the broilers. Now coming to layers, um the layers, my experience, say especially Remy, especially with the layers, is that we I really did not use a lot of antibiotics in the layers, particularly because the vaccination program was so clear and it was so strict. But then again, remember, when we do use the antibiotics in the layers, your eggs, there's quite a long process that goes through the eggs before they go into, and okay, they go into the table. And I think because I was working in the broiler business, I hope Asante will take this one for the farm to table eggs. But in the broiler business, there was a long period that would happen between when you'd have the egg that has been laid, and then it goes through to the fumigation before it goes to hatchery, and then it gets set on certain temperatures that would kill some of, so there was just a long period before it would go into it getting hatched into becoming a chicken. I don't have much experience for the table eggs, so I'm gonna leave that to my colleague. In as far as structures are concerned, oh my brother, I no longer remember the direction, because the structures here in South Africa, almost especially for broilers, are the mechanized structures where it doesn't matter which direction they are facing, because everything is it's digital. The fan is digital, the windows are digital, everything is just digital. I am not going to sit here and tell you that I remember. I know that I was taught that in class, but because I work so much with digital structures, I no longer remember. I'm just gonna be honest with you. But yes, if you're going to use semi-mechanized houses, the direction matters a lot. I no longer remember what it was though.
Okay. I think the principle behind the erection there is that obviously you are right that sun must not directly, enter into your broiler house, because that also is one of the cause for cannibalism. And also it's for, especially for those naturally ventilated houses, for air movement into the broiler. I also just forget. I'm trying to remember, but as far as I can remember, I think it was from east to west, if I'm not mistaken. Just because the sun will be moving over there, because the sun always comes from the east to the west, so it will sort of move over instead of from one side to the other side. So you don't want. So the principle basically is the sun should not move from one side over to the other side, because that then it gives direct sunlight. It allows the direct sunlight into your broiler house from one side, and when it moves to the other side, it then also allows the direct sunlight from the other side into your broiler house, and leading to cannibalism possibly. And also that also allows, I think, also for good air movement and all of those things. So that's basically the principle all around which direction to you just want to try and avoid as much as possible direct sunlight into your broiler house. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I would be correct, but as the doctor has said, with antibiotics, it's not an everyday thing, and you are not actually giving them on a daily basis or on a regular basis like you would give stress pack vitamins because of maybe there was too much movement or any other reason why you want to give them vitamins and to actually calm them down with the stress pack. But antibiotics, the way I've actually understood them and actually have been also helped with one of the doctors in terms of being able to differentiate between a vaccine and an antibiotic. And
Norma? Okay, I don't know. I think Dr. Justice was still speaking because it seems like Norma is also having a network problem.
Oh, no, I think it was Bayanda that was speaking. I had ended my 2 cents there. I think, yeah, it was Bayanda.
Yeah, and it looks like we don't have him now. Okay, there, he's back. Thank God. No, fuck. And people just call as well. I don't know. There needs to be an option to cancel phone calls and everything else.
I don't.
Bayanda, I think maybe you can take it from where you left. I'm so sorry, guys.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I don't know what's going on, but I was just speaking about one thing that Doc has actually highlighted when we had training with him some other time, and it helps me as well to also explain to my mentees on the mentorship programs that I have to be able to differentiate between a vaccine that is to prevent and an antibiotic that is treat. Um, and we need to understand that and to actually follow that. Hence, we need to be very much awakened in terms of a vaccination program. A vaccination program will entail your vaccines. It will entail your antibiotics. It will entail your stress pack or any other medication that your chickens will need. So yes, there is a withdrawal period from your medication when you buy it, your antibiotics that you need to withdraw your eggs for probably 7 days. And different vets will advise you probably similarly, but also differently in terms of what you can do with the eggs, because the most important thing is actually the eggs going to a consumer who's got probably a certain allergy or something like that, that can actually, cause a lot of problems to people that you're going to give them to consume the eggs. And so it really depends on your consumers and who you are supplying as well, but also how you are administrating antibiotics. Like I've said, we were administering our antibiotics to the chickens that we have realized that they are sick. Hence, it's important for you to do your scouting, to listen to the cough, to listen to the sneezing, to listen to this and this and that, and don't just administer antibiotics when chickens are actually healthy. So it will only be used for chickens because they are sick, so that you can be able to treat them. So I would really advise that we don't give, if I'm correct, Doc, all the chickens antibiotic because they are not sick unless they show signs of being sick. So that in layers, you don't lose a lot of eggs because you have to withdraw because of you treated your chickens. So take out the chickens that are showing signs that are sick and treat them, and vaccinate to prevent the rest from getting sick, so that you are able to actually continue to have a reproduction or a production system that can continue to work for you and your business. Because at the end of the day, you are running a business and you cannot run it at a loss in any way. So I just wanted to highlight that. I hope it makes sense. I know we talk a bit much, but we're just trying to explain as much as we can to everyone, because a lot of times we just put medications for everyone and we don't understand what medication is for what, as I've said before, because we tend to listen to so many people and we end up stressing and frustrating our chickens because they stress a lot, and bringing sometimes other problems because of not understanding what is for what and why we're doing certain things. So there's prevention and there's treatment. Thank you.
I'd like to add on what Mayanda has just said. Um, it I think Asante did indicate earlier on, as much as you can have a veterinary official in your corner, whether it's a vet or an animal health technician or a veterinary nurse, at least those three. Always have a veterinary official in your corner who will come in handy when you have these kind of questions. Secondly, if you are in a layer business, whether your layers are for broilers or they're for table eggs, the treatment, especially with antibiotics, sometimes it's different. You remember, Bayanda did indicate earlier on that in a layer pen, you would have a pen that is specifically for sick birds, where you would be able to administer the antibiotics most of the time separately. And bulk of those eggs, in any case, do not actually follow through the same process that the eggs of the other healthier animals would follow. But in a broiler situation, it's completely different, because now, if you walk in and you hear a sneeze or a cough, you most probably will have to treat the whole house, and that is where the withdrawal period comes in very handy and very important. And where I even said that if it's on the other side of 28 days, would advise you not to treat, because there's no way that you're going to be taking those animals to slaughter with because you won't have met the withdrawal period. Okay, what I would like to talk about now, just before we close, Amanda, is the broiler cycle. We have what you call a broiler cycle, from the time you place up until the time you place, from one placement to the next. There are things that are important that every farmer should always know and understand. Before you place your chicken, you should have at least 7 days where you would have been cleaning, you would have been fumigating, removing all the litter, clean, ventilate, disinfect, and make sure that your house is clean, properly clean. Making sure that your bed nets are good. If you had those that were torn, you remove them, you place new ones. Make sure that your grass is cut. I don't know how many farms I've been into in the broiler business, where you walk in and your feet sinks into the grass. Keeping the grass short is not for cosmetic reasons, it's disease control. Make sure that your grass is cut. There is no litter flying around. Your disease mats for your food baths are placed well, and everything before you place. Make sure that you fix all the broken structures. You make sure that all your temperature tables are working. You have your vaccination programs on the wall. Your water tanks are working. You have all your medication in the proper cupboard. You know who carries the keys to the medication. Everybody knows what their duty is. You know where the changing clothes are. The showers have been cleaned. Everything that goes on in the farm is done before placement. Secondly, you have to really, really, really make sure that on the day of placement, you communicate with your supplier. I always pray that everybody gets their day olds or their 18-week-olds from reliable suppliers, or from, in the case of broilers, from hatcheries. Make sure that you communicate with them. And when they come to your farm, check the temperature of the truck that brought your chicken into the farm. What was the temperature? You record it down. You should have the record of the temperature when you took your chicken out. Because remember, if those chicks or the thermostat stopped working, or something happened and they were exposed to too much cold or to too much heat during the traveling, it's going to be a problem. Record that temperature when those trucks come through. And when you place, you always make sure that you've got proper sawdust, the size of the chips of the sawdust, your water and your feed troughs are clean, your lights are working. It is a whole lot of work between 0 and 14 days, and you cannot be found napping. Okay, so those are the things that you really need to do. And during the whole cycle, everything that we've spoken about in the case of the broilers, during the whole cycle, it is important that you make sure that, again, ventilation, ventilation, ventilation. What are you using for ventilation? Is it your roller mats where you just roll the wind the canvas down during the day, and then you roll it up at night? What times do you do that? Is everybody aware? Do you use a mechanized house? Is everything working? Ventilation, ventilation, ventilation. Follow the weather. Like, you work at the South African Bureau of Weather, you need to know these things. It is not a joke. And throughout the whole cycle, do your walk-ins. Or if you've got a person who works with you, they should know their walk-ins. Biosecurity is important. You cannot go home with the overall that you work in and then you come back. Again, do the people who work with you have their backyard chickens? And what is the communication? Because remember, they can bring diseases like salmonella to your farm. I mean, now I'm talking to you, Bayanda, as a layer farmer. If there are people who are working with you and they do not stay in the farm, they go home elsewhere and come back the following day, your food bats must always be working. They should have overalls that are staying in the farm. They cannot go into your poultry houses with their own clothes. There should be a proper change room. They change, they get into the farm clothes, and then they go to work. Again, if you are in the layer business, make sure that you take those swabs. You know, those that long thing that looks like an earbud, but they're just a bit longer. They are white. They've got a cotton wool on both ends. Sometimes just a one end. You use those, and then you took a stool sample from the guys who work in your layer farm and check for salmonellosis, because it is a disease that is transferred between chicken and man. And if one of your farm workers have salmonellosis, they have to be laid off from the farm. They get their treatment. You test them again before they come back to the farm, because they will transfer the disease to your chicken. Okay, so and if you are in the broiler business, you are supposed to have about 8.5 cycles a year, and that includes your disinfection, fumigation, and cleaning period. The moment you have more than 8 cycles, up to 10 cycles, there is something that you are short-changing on, and it's going to come back and bite you in the end. I'm just going to stop there for now.
What I'm realizing here is that I got a long way to go. I am a baby when it comes to poultry farming. So yeah, I am so glad for this space. I just wanted to find out from By Black if he had something that he wanted to say. I know that he was supposed to be my co-host, but other things happened. So I just wanted to hear if he had something that he wanted to ask, or he'll still remain as a listener?
Thank you very much, Ausamanda, and greetings to everyone. I'm sorry I joined in a bit late there, so I did have a bunch of questions, but for now, because of time, I can just ask two of them, but if there's no time to answer them, I'll understand. The first one I wanted to ask, because you spoke a lot about vaccines, is for instance, my day-old chicks are vaccinated for what is this, infectious bronchitis and Newcastle. Is it necessary then to vaccinate later on for Newcastle? That's one thing I want to find out, because I think it's common for most of the local farmers to vaccinate for Newcastle, but then the hatcheries actually do vaccinate their olds for infectious bronchitis and Newcastle. That's the one question. And the last question I wanted to ask is, which is bothering me, is the deep litter system. So I understand that the Brazilians use the deep litter system a lot for their broilers. And what I want to know is which chemicals, or rather which chemical do you recommend for a person who's using a deep litter system? Because then if one can use deep litter system without any challenge, because I understand they can have the same bedding throughout the year, but just adding layers and layers and layers on top of it, and they don't have challenges with diseases. So whatever chemical that is being used, then it would probably also be good for me as a person who changes my pine shavings with every cycle. Yeah, those are the two questions for now. And I also want to say thank you very much, guys, for coming through. You've really, I've taken a lot of notes since I joined in. And I think that I appreciate your time. I think this is very, very important what you are doing right now. And I want to thank Os Amanda as well. Thank you for bringing the good hosts and listeners. Please, if possible, can you do this again next year? Because I also noticed that you didn't record the space, and that is really a loss. They've really shared important information that it could have been good for us to have it on record and maybe also share it with other farmers at a later stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, maybe to come in there. Um, the issue of revaccine, or what I would, the word I would use would be boosters. Um, this is, I feel like from this point, I think what we need to understand is what we call a vaccination program. We've mentioned it, we've spoken about it, because in the vaccination program, that's when you will learn to realize that some vaccines are not just once-off vaccines. For instance, you've made mention of Newcastle. Yes, they do get it at as day olds, but there is boosters that you also have to give. Some would say at around 14, and maybe at around in the second booster or last booster at around day 21. That's why it's important to have a vaccination schedule. Uh, Even if they come vaccinated for other things, there's still sometimes a need for you to give boosters. So yes, they are not wrong when they say you still need to vaccinate again or boost them. I would use the word booster because it's usually you are boosting them, you've vaccinated them, you are boosting them, so that they have enough immunity. Because sometimes when you give one, they will not have enough and sustainable immunity. So when you give the booster, you are then now triggering the body to produce enough antibodies or immunity. You are strengthening the immune system so that it lasts longer, and yeah, it is enough to fight against diseases. So yeah, there is usually a need for a booster. That would be my 2 cents on the booster side of things.
Okay, I'm gonna try to answer both of your questions. Just to add on what Doc has said. Remember, initially, I'm just gonna stick to South Africa because I haven't consulted on any of the countries outside of South Africa. When it comes to vaccination, you also look at the endemicity of the disease. Is it present in that particular area? There are areas, very few in South Africa, where you don't really get Newcastle, and those farmers get away with only just the HRA vaccination. But as I've already indicated, there are very few. And to be quite honest with you, I do not know which areas are those. So based on that and the fact that one Newcastle disease, I'm making an example of the Newcastle disease in particular, is an endemic disease in South Africa. It is present everywhere. You just have to boost your animals. In the case of broilers, 2 boosters, depending on how many outbreaks are common in that area, are usually enough. Sometimes even one at day 17, I think we can still get away with it. And then in the case of Gumboro disease, you can actually get away with just the HRE vaccination. You may not even have to do any Gumboro vaccination throughout that 45 days, not unless there have been outbreaks, in which case then you would need to use the combination. The deep lister system, in case of the layers, I'm gonna limit myself. Maybe I'm gonna talk about layers and broilers anyway. Remember, the biggest thing with your deep litter system again is management. And management, we'll talk to what Doc spoke about earlier on, litter management in terms of ammonia, accumulation of ammonia in your litter, because that is going to be a cause of your feed problems particularly. And you may need to cull your animals because of the feed problem, because from ammonia burns. Again, you'd remember that it also needs quite a lot of your whatever you're going to use as your bedding. If you're using shavings or sawdust or husk, depending, it would need quite a lot of that. So obviously the benefits are that you are not likely to get leg problems, but again, you are going to experience a lot of ammonia problems if you are not managing your litter very well. It is advantageous, obviously, but it, like everything else that is poultry involved, it needs a lot of management. Thank you.
Just to add on what Doug has already mentioned, yeah, also the accumulation of ammonia affects the respiratory system. So I would say it also then also affects your ventilation, because there's a lot of ammonia accumulated in the broiler house, and then even if there's enough oxygen coming in, but there's also that ammonia that then limits the amount of oxygen that they have access to. So yeah. Deep litter system, also the bacteria accumulation in the house. It harbors a lot of bacteria. I know some prefer it. I usually don't on my consultations advise it. Some farmers says it works. Maybe it does work for them, but yeah, I have also enough reasons to also try and make you see another side of the thing. Ammonia accumulation, bacteria accumulation. So those are the main factors that I have. You might find that they also put another liter on top of a wet liter. All of those things, which I don't really, I usually do advise an all in all out clean in between kind of a system, because in that you have a bit of a control over your bacteria accumulation, ammonia, ventilation, and everything. Thank you.
One thing that I would like to add, even though we didn't touch so much on, Amanda, I hope that you're gonna maybe one day when you have time, have another space where we can maybe just focus on one um topic, whether it's feed or diseases of layers or diseases of broilers. But anyway, coming back to what we've talked about, everything. Remember, you are in this for profit, okay? And the bird that you produce is going to affect your bottom line. Let's talk about strike rate for a minute. Those who watch cricket will understand strike rate, but now we talk about the strike rate in as far as you're farming for broilers or something. So let's say you support or you Woolworths buys your broilers, okay, they are looking for a certain bird of a certain weight. Okay, so your duty is to produce that bird without ammonia burns, without lungs with diseases. It's not too overweight, it is not underweight, it is clean, it is caught at the same at a proper time, meaning that that day that bird is not caught at day 40 or at day 27. It is caught between day 33 and day 35. Okay, that is your strike rate. If you have like Norma, you have a 3,000 bed house, and in you obviously you are going to look at things that like saying what is the placing mortality, which should never be more than 5%. Okay, and then that is 0 to 7 days, 7 to 14 days mortality, and your mortality or the death of the chicken as your cycle goes along should reduce as the birds grow older. Okay, I'm saying now between 0 and 7 days, 5%. So by the time you get to the catching days at between day 33 and day 35, you should not be looking at anything beyond 2% as mortality for your birds. If it's more than that, then you should start getting worried. Let's say again, we're looking at Norma's house of 3,000. What she catches on day between day 33 and day 35, at least she should have 94% strike rate of what her supplier requires of her for her to at least break even. Okay, so if the supplier requires a 2 kilogram bed at live weight and 1.8 kilogram bird at dead weight, at least 94% of the birds that she's going to give that supplier should meet that. That is the strike rate. Failing which, your birds will end up in the IQF. That is not a lot of money. Okay, so everything that we're talking about here, when we talk about these things, we are talking about your profit. We are talking about your business growing. We are talking about you getting a better market because you're producing a good product. For instance, I'm going to make an example. Your bird has the 2.1 kilogram weight that is required for a live bird, but it's got ammonia burns. It is not going to make it through, even though you met the weight. Your bird has the correct weight and has no ammonia burns, but it's got sick lungs. It still does not make it through. So it's quite a delicate balance. But please just learn to make sure that you take one thing at a time all the time. Okay, I've got my ventilation right, I've got my litter right, I've got my temperatures correctly. I know what to look for. I still remember my gut, lungs, or nervous, all of that. And whenever you feel stuck, please consult your veterinary official. They will be able to help you. And one thing that I also forgot rather, have the people who supply your feed should be in your pocket all the time, because what in my experience, I don't know what Asante Consulting has experienced, but in my experience, it was that when you have everything in order in as far as disease prevention, your ventilation and your houses, feed always comes up as a problem. So do not be too shy or too scared to test that feed all the time. Test the feed, it's going to help you. But remember, everything touches your bottom line. Do you have a market? Preferably, when you place, all those birds should be sold already. There isn't anything that is as painful as what we see sometimes when you go to a broiler farm and the birds are 45 days old. From day 35, they are no longer serving any purpose for you. They are eating from your pocket, and that 10-day is not going to come back at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. This is exactly what we're always preaching, that people should not be so happy to seem like they're selling big chickens while their pockets are not so big, because the chickens would have eaten away at their pockets. We had Dr. Tlologelo, but I think we lost her. While we wait for her to come back, if she's going to reconnect, we have Kumuto from LHC Pharma Vet. I'm only going to allow you to speak of your medication in regards to poultry. Everything else, people can just connect with you guys on the timeline. But since we're just talking about poultry, that's the platform I'll be giving you. I know that they said that they work with Dr. Justice. So they have some meds, because I know someone actually asked me, how do I deal with worms in chickens? And I thought to myself, I've actually never experienced that. And I don't know how to deal with them, because the last time I've ever dealt with worms was with roadrunners back in the Eastern Cape. And I thought maybe it's because we keep them for long. But with broilers, I've never experienced that. And I would love to know if there are preventative measures for that, because I would not want to experience such a thing. As customers, if they slaughter for themselves and they find worms, that would really ruin my reputation. So, Komoto, I'm gonna give you maximum 3 minutes, please, to just present to us in regards to the type of medications that you have for poultry that can assist us.
Right. Thank you very much for the space. It's an honor to be in the company of so much knowledge around our beds, which is actually our food. And we at LHC Pharma, by the way, I'm Komocho. I'm the managing director at LHC Pharma, and we got into the poultry space mainly to ensure that we produce safe meat. We do other business in other livestock, but on the poultry space, it is exactly this. And listening to this and listening to us talking about ammonia being a problem, yes, it is a problem in the houses, but it comes as a problem because there is a lot of protein still in the waste, in the litter. So we at LHC Pharma, we saw a problem which was mainly the overuse of antibiotics in poultry raising, and sought to find solutions that drive out prophylactic use of antibiotic, where we just putting in doxycycline. Sorry, I'll use that one, or oxytetracycline, because those are the biggest culprits, I think, in the space. So we have probiotics, one being Improval, that is aimed at day olds in order to prepare their gut system, because we in this space also know that the gut of a bird or an animal is ultimately the health of that bird. If you do not look after the gut, you might as well just throw them all out on day one. So we've introduced Improval, which has 13 strains of beneficial microflora that when you start giving it, the chicks get it from the ground, and they take in the beneficial microflora, helping them to avoid contracting bad ones or displacing the bad ones that they may have contracted. And in that, it ensures that then your gut health is stronger and enables the bird to survive better. We've done a lot of trials in this space, comparing our product against other well-known products, including stress pack, because I think everyone else or everybody uses stress pack on day one, and we've seen superior results from that by just doing it with probiotics. And in addition to that, we have another product that's an enzyme product, and this one assists more with that buildup of urea and in that space. What it does, it assists in optimizing digestion. It's a 8 enzyme mix which enables the bird to digest properly what gets through. So you might be feeding your starter a 22% protein mix, but what the bird gets is not that 22%. And what this product does is assist you to get to as close to that 22% of protein extraction from the food into the bed and not into the litter or any other space like that. So that's another wonderful product that we've had. And with all these products, we have trials, we have been with them in the market, and we have proven results that come out of the use of these products. So the main benefit of these products, just the two ones I'll highlight, mainly these two ones, uh, is reduced mortality, improved weight gain, especially for broilers. But in layers also, you do get harder shells that you can, when your bed comes out or when your eggs are laid, you do not have cracked eggs and all that in the space. And then to come to your question on worms, yes, worms are a problem in eggs, and I mean in beds. I've seen a few of those, and yes, you're right. Mostly in road runners, because in road runners they sort of leave just in J, so they have more chances of contracting parasitic worms from their feed from the environment. We do have products that can go into that space to treat worms in the space, because yes, you would not want to have your customers opening it up and then finding worms in the intestines. So we do have a praziquantel, which is a very, very good dewormer, and it can be added into water to then uh, remove all the potential worms that may be in there. But also we do have a host of other products that I think with the time that I have, I'll just give highlights, and then if you have questions and if you have any other comments or specific needs, then we can then look directly into those and assist you. But what I mainly wanted to highlight was Improval, which is a probiotic, and Poltase, which is an enzyme product that we currently have in the market. We have 13 odd other products, and we are adding on to them in each quarter as we get registrations through the Department of Agriculture, and we will be offering you a lot more in terms of our portfolio of products that you can then farm profitably and safely with. Thank you. I think I've taken up a bit more of that time, but I'll take a question or one or two if needed.
Thanks, Kumuto. I think for that extra 3 minutes that you took, you owe me samples so that I can be your promo girl here on Twitter. So give me samples for my
I'm open to trial from, you can trial, and I can have one, two more others who would want to do their own in-house trial. We can assist you in that space.
Buy Black already has his hand up, so
Yeah.
he's taken number 2.
Sorry, I just went on to Komuto's profile. I don't see your contact details there. If farmers want to get hold of you, how do we get hold of you? Are you able to perhaps maybe leave your contact details there? Thank you.
All right. I'll leave my contact details, but in the meantime, if you do want to get hold of me, Asante does have my contacts, and we have done some work together, and we continue to do some work together. So if you cannot get hold of me, please go through there. It's a friend that we can all rely on.
They do have a page, LHC Farmer here on Twitter. It's just that he got kicked out. He was in the space. I think his network cut. But I think maybe if you guys can just have a tweet where you tag me, and I'll retweet for everybody to see. Yes, Norma?
No, I was saying I will take some samples.
We're here for the free stuff. Okay. Um, Before we close, because I'm being cognizant of time now, we're way over our limit, but I'm sure that everybody is not complaining because we've just gotten so much knowledge from this. And I'm sure Makwala has recorded the space, so it will be there on YouTube if you want to go back and if you didn't make notes, go back and listen and make notes. And in 2022 we'll come back again and we'll call the doctors again, because in all honesty, I don't even feel like we've covered enough of what we need. This can be a day's job alone. But before we close, I would like Dr. Justice to know, maybe just give us a brief of his experience with LHC pharma products, and then give his closing remarks. And then Dr. Kolisi also, immediately after him, um, closing remarks, Norma, and then by Black.
Okay, thank you so much. Um, yes. Sorry, as they've just mentioned, we have been working together for some time now, and yeah, we continue to do so. We've got products ranging from livestock. We've got internal and external products, dewormers and deep, and yeah, then the supplements on the poultry side of things. We also working together. We do run some trainings, and yeah, we just stopped for the year. Be on the lookout next year for our training schedule. We are planning to target provinces. So we'll try and come all over, and we'll be making probably the products available as close to you as possible. And yeah, all informations, do follow us on social media. Follow me and follow Farmavet, and yeah, we're also on Facebook and Instagram, so you can all follow us. They've got a website. I also, Massager Veterinary Consultants, have a website. You can check our information there. Other than that, we are open to form partnerships. Remember, we spoke about farmers having a vet in their corner. We are that vet, offering that to them. Both consultation we offer, from online consultations to WhatsApp to phone call, to also coming to your farm. We enjoy coming to your farm and interacting with you. So yeah, and there's no limit of province. As long as we can put some plan in place, we will always attempt to come to your farm and do the necessary inspection and give the necessary advice. So that's who we are. We cover species from livestock. We're speaking cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and poultry. And yeah, so that's basically in the production, meat producing and meat product producing, or livestock products. So we are basically in the production animal space. And yeah, contact us anytime. We are open for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Um, I currently reside in the Eastern Cape, where you last saw chicken with parasites. Um, so I'm available for farmers in and around Eastern Cape. I am particularly into training. I do practice clinical medicine only in poultry and pigs. I unfortunately do not do a lot of cattle and sheep. Um, so people can contact me on my timeline. I would then share other personal details. The Facebook page. I do not do a lot of consulting in my Facebook page. It's actually a personal Facebook page, but here on the timeline, I will help you see how you can get into contact with me if you are in the Eastern Cape. I am excited about these spaces. Please try to host more. I will certainly be present, and where I need to bring in more people, I will invite them to come through so that they can come and help, and so that everybody gets the help that they require. I am excited also to see that there are so many young people in the farming space who choose farming instead of looking at it as a last resort. I am proud of all of you guys. Keep fighting. It is going to be okay. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Doc. That was we really needed to hear that. The part where you said it's going to be okay. Because sometimes you feel like it's actually, maybe it won't, and then you're like, okay, maybe it will. Am I a bit crazy? But yeah, thank you so much to everybody that joined us. It was again a very informative space, very, very important. And Amanda, I'm not sure if you spoke about Clawman Solutions. I just wanted to actually just tell everyone about them. So I use their products. They've got something called Chicken Air, which is amazing. A couple of products that will help you reduce the amount of ammonia in your chicken houses. They've got products that can help you, purify and clean your water, because some of us use borehole water and all of that. So I just wanted to actually, notify all poultry farmers about Clomine Solutions. And Amanda actually sells them, so please do hit her up. She does distribute, so for Clomine Solutions, it really, really does help. But yeah, we'll see you guys next year. Thank you so much to everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Black. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm just grateful to be part of the space today. There's really not much for me to add. I always say when you're in the presence of greatness, you better just listen. And that is what I've been doing today. I'm a student in the presence of masters, and I'm very grateful to be here once again. Thank you, everyone, our hosts and listeners, for making this space. And I really appreciate your time, because I know your time is very precious and you do invoice for your time. But now you've offered us your time free of charge. You're doing us a great deal of help as a nation. And you are the actual economic warriors that I talk about when I'm talking about economic warriors. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I feel like this has been such a great way to end our poultry spaces for the year. I did think that I would have one on the 28th, but then I realized, which no, I think people, apparently December is a lifestyle. It's not just a month. So we would be wasting if we had a space. So we will come back again in Jan. And if you keep a lookout on my timeline, I will share when we start with our next spaces. I'd just like to extend gratitude to our doctors for joining us. Like By Black mentioned that you guys actually charge for your services, but you've offered them to us for free, and you are availing yourselves for more and more spaces to come. And we really, really, really appreciate it. Coming from a place where it's so hard to get information, um, as black farmers trying to start out, and it's like you people start acting like they're celebrities withholding information. And we're really just so grateful for spaces and to actually be able to rub shoulders with people like you guys. When this started, it was just an idea that I didn't even know that it would be successful, that it would even, be useful to people. But I'm seeing that people actually need it, and I am so grateful for all the support that I'm getting from Buy Black, from Norma, and all other poultry farmers, from Makwala, for recording for us, you know. And yeah, man, I'm just super, super grateful to you, each and every one of you guys that is in the space. Um, may you guys be safe. May you guys have a beautiful Christmas with your families. May you guys have, a joyous festive season. Stay away from Corona. Stay away from the streets. Don't waste money. Let's save, guys. It's tough. It's tough. Plant vegetables. Let's just, before I preach, thank you guys. Have a great evening. I will see you all back in this space again in January. Have a blessed evening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.